Hello, this is Jason Matthews. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and today I'm going to tell you why I created this channel and the mission of this channel. And my answer is probably very likely going to surprise you, and it's not going to be what you expected. But before we get started, if you support the police, click the like button. And if you do not support the police, click the dislike button. It's anonymous. And I'm just curious of where you stand because we have a very divided public out there on this subject. Why did I create this channel? It's for one simple reason, and then I'll give you the mission of this channel, which is a separate reason. I'm a combat veteran. Now, I was in combat many, many years ago, many decades ago, before I started in law enforcement. And that affects me today. It has affected me more and more as time goes on. And that has affected my speech. And so I was an instructor in the military at one point. I was an instructor at the U.S. Army Air Assault School. And then in law enforcement, I was also an instructor where I taught people on a regular basis. So at the Air Assault School, I taught daily classes, 3 classes a day, and there was thousands of soldiers that went through that school. So I had a lot of instructing experience. And then in law enforcement, I was a use of force instructor, a taser instructor, a physical fitness instructor. So I taught a lot of classes to other law enforcement. And that helped me in my speech. It helped keep the practice up, the repetition. But I noticed after I retired and I wasn't giving classes on a regular basis, that started to decline. And so I decided to start a YouTube channel about a subject that I knew a lot about, which is law enforcement. And so this helps me to maintain that repetition, to keep up on the issues that I have that go all the way back to combat. Because if I don't, then it declines significantly and quickly. Now, the mission of this channel is simply to inform you about my experiences in law enforcement. And sometimes I put videos about Brazil, and sometimes I put videos on this channel about the military. But mainly this channel is about law enforcement. And so I named this channel A Cop's Voice because it's me telling you about my experiences in law enforcement and other issues. So I created this channel for both of our benefit, for me to practice my speech and to inform you about my experience in law enforcement. A lot of people assume that I created this channel to defend law enforcement. And I get a lot of comments, and that is just simply not the case. So the ignorant people that make comments in the comment section that I hear about, because I don't usually look at the comment section unless our moderators tell me about it. Bring a comment to my attention that needs my attention. Inappropriate comments, the profanity-laced comments that get through YouTube algorithm, and the ones that are personal attacks, they just get deleted by our volunteer moderators, and I never see them. But I will respond personally to constructive comments if they're brought to my attention by the moderators. Probably you're surprised I don't care about the subject of law enforcement. I do not care. I am retired. I'm only doing this to maintain my speech. So I'm not going to argue about the subject. I'm not pro-police and I'm not against the police. But I will tell you my experience. And so people get upset when I share my experience, which is much higher than your experience and your knowledge about law enforcement. And people don't like to hear that. They think they know more than I do or someone who was in law enforcement for decades. The chances of you or anyone for that matter knowing more about law enforcement than I do is very slim. It's possible if someone was in law enforcement longer than me or did more things than me, but I did quite a bit in law enforcement. I worked down on the border. I worked in maximum security prison. I worked on the streets. I was on special operations teams. I was an instructor specialized in many different things. I had a lot of arrests. I wrote a lot of tickets. And so it's going to be a very slim minority of law enforcement officers who have more experience than I do, although it exists. And my experience was all in the field. I was not a supervisor in law enforcement. Although I was a supervisor in the military, I was not a supervisor in law enforcement. So I had for decades hands-on experience, whereas supervisors who promote up, they're sitting behind a desk and they're not engaged in field work for the most part. And so they may have general knowledge and the experience that they had on the streets in the field, but that's very limited once they move up. So for that fact of me being in the field on a daily basis for decades, I'm going to have way more experience than most people do. Yes, there could be lawyers who have more knowledge about case law than I do, but a lot of that is just knowledge, book knowledge, whereas I apply case law on a daily basis based on rapidly evolving situations where a lawyer would not. And I'm just telling you how I see the situation based on my experience. So when people say the police are corrupt, can I know about all police at all times? Of course not. But I can know based on my experience a lot more than you can or the average person can, by far, by a large margin. When I say that, yes, corruption exists in law enforcement, but it's a very small percentage. That's what I saw, and that's what I heard about being in contact with many, many officers and working in many, many areas and many jurisdictions over my career. Again, large picture here. There's almost 1 million officers employed in the United States. And the very limited amount of content that you see on YouTube or hear about in the news, that's a very small percentage. And they are trying to make money off of that shocking news. The YouTube algorithm promotes to you the worst of the worst. The news promotes to you the worst of the worst, even though that's a very small percentage of what's actually happening. You would be very bored to watch the millions and millions or whatever it is of hours of YouTube video if it was posted of just police doing their normal job with nothing happening, which is the vast, vast majority of the time. And they're doing everything right. You wouldn't want to watch that because it's boring. And if you want to watch my video on this channel, are the police corrupt? Are the police racist? Those videos are on my channel for you to watch. This YouTube channel is not monetized. I make zero money off of this channel. So I'm doing this for those reasons. And the mission, again, of this channel is to inform you based on my extensive experience in law enforcement. If you want to disagree, you obviously can disagree, but how much experience do you have? How much have you seen? Probably very little. So you may not like what I'm telling you because you have an opinion about the situation based on the limited information that you know of or have seen. And I also have a limited opinion, but my limited opinion is vastly more than yours because I cannot know what the almost 1 million law enforcement officers are doing at any random time in the United States on a daily basis, making millions of contacts every single day. But because of my experience, I can give you norms of what I saw. And so that's the point of this channel. My opinions are not up for debate. As I said before, if someone gives a very constructive opinion in the comment section, the moderators will inform me and I will go in and I will respond to that comment more than likely. If you enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. Take care and have a great day.